A covert avoidant is perhaps one of the most dangerous personalities you can encounter in an intimate relationship. On the surface, they appear gentle, fragile, even innocent, someone who needs your care, love, and protection. But beneath this soft exterior lies a hidden arsenal of psychological weapons, carefully designed to control, manipulate, and ultimately dismantle your sense of self. Unlike obvious abusers who use aggression or domination, the covert avoidant hides behind masks of vulnerability and detachment. They make you believe you are their safe space, the one person they can truly rely on. Yet every secret you share, every insecurity you reveal, slowly becomes a tool in their playbook of control. What begins as empathy soon transforms into emotional warfare. In relationships, the covert avoidant creates a cycle of hope and despair. They offer intimacy only to withdraw it, keeping you off balance and addicted to their unpredictable approval. You find yourself working harder for less affection, rearranging your life around their moods, and doubting your own worth whenever conflict arises. Over time, this dynamic erodes confidence, isolates you from support systems, and traps you in a web of dependency where love feels more like survival. The purpose of this exploration is not to create paranoia but to provide clarity. By exposing the 10 hidden weapons of the covert avoidant, you can learn to recognize the signs, understand the manipulation, and protect your emotional sovereignty. Awareness is the first shield against psychological warfare disguised as love. Vulnerability trap at the beginning of a relationship. When a covert avoidant shares their broken stories, past pains and emotional wounds with you, it seems like an attempt to build a deep and genuine connection. You feel as if they trust you immensely, and inside you the immediate urge to become their protector awakens. This is the very moment when the vulnerability trap begins its work. This trap is in fact a psychological strategy used by the covert avoidant. Its purpose is to make you quickly invest emotionally in the relationship and direct your energy toward them. When you start believing that you are the one who can heal their wounds, you unconsciously tie your sense of responsibility to their emotions. You are no longer just a partner, you become an indispensable protector and emotional therapist. The real danger is that this vulnerability is often not genuine but a weapon. Every secret, every pain and every tear becomes leverage that can later be used against you. Your empathy slowly transforms into servitude. You begin to neglect your own happiness and needs, focusing solely on managing their emotional storms. This is the starting point where love shifts into the realm of psychological control by the covert avoidant. Intermittent reinforcement. A covert avoidant uses one of the most powerful psychological weapons called intermittent reinforcement. This is the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. At times, the covert avoidant overwhelms you with love, attention, and validation, making you feel like the most cherished person in the world. Then suddenly they withdraw, criticize, or turn cold. This unpredictability keeps you hooked, constantly chasing the high of their approval. In the beginning, when the covert avoidant showers you with affection, it feels intoxicating. You believe you've finally found someone who truly sees your worth. But the moment they pull away, confusion sets in. You start questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong, and working harder just to regain the affection they once freely gave. This cycle is not random, it is a deliberate psychological trap designed to make you emotionally dependent. Over time, you develop an unconscious addiction to their approval. Just like a gambler who keeps betting in hopes of winning again, you keep investing more of yourself for smaller rewards. Eventually, your life begins to revolve entirely around managing the covert avoidance moods. Your happiness, peace, and self-worth shrink, while your dependency on them grows stronger. Passive aggression factory. A covert avoidant rarely attacks you openly. Instead, they operate through subtle provocations, indirect insults, and manufactured misunderstandings, what can be called the passive aggression factory. This weapon allows them to wound you while maintaining plausible deniability. They can easily say, "I wasn't being hostile," while you are left reeling from their undermining behavior. The covert avoidant often creates problems through ambiguity. They may set unspoken rules, expect you to read their mind, or become upset over something they never communicated. When you try to address the issue, they deny there's a problem at all, while simultaneously punishing you for not solving it. This puts you in a double bind. You're expected to fix issues you're not even allowed to acknowledge. The most destructive part of passive aggression is the conditioning it creates. You learn to become hypervigilant, constantly scanning their moods, while suppressing your own emotional reactions to avoid conflict. Over time, you begin censoring your words, adjusting your behavior, and walking on eggshells around the person who is supposed to love you. The passive aggression factory keeps you trapped in anxiety and confusion. You never know what might set them off, so you slowly lose touch with your authentic self, becoming instead a nervous caretaker of the covert avoidant's unpredictable emotions. Deflection Shield, a covert avoidant, has mastered the art of never taking responsibility for their actions. No matter what happens, it is never their fault. This is the deflection shield, a psychological barrier that ensures accountability never reaches them while making you believe you are always to blame. When you try to raise a legitimate concern in the relationship, the covert avoidant immediately flips the script. Your attempt to discuss their behavior becomes an attack on your character. Your emotional needs are labeled as neediness, your boundaries as selfishness, and your concerns as negativity. By doing this, they successfully turn the spotlight away from themselves and onto you. The deflection shield operates through predictable tactics, minimizing the impact of their actions, denying events happened as you remember them, rationalizing their behavior with past trauma, and redirecting blame toward your reactions instead of their actions. To the covert avoidant, they are always the victim, no matter what they've done. The damage comes when you begin doubting yourself. Over time, you question your own memory, perceptions, and even your right to feel upset. Eventually, you find yourself apologizing for bringing up their behavior and carrying the emotional burden of the entire relationship, while the covert avoidant walks away untouched. Emotional exploitation. A covert avoidant carefully collects your deepest wounds, insecurities, and past traumas, not to heal them, but to weaponize them later. In the early stages, they encourage you to open up, presenting themselves as understanding and compassionate. They reassure you that your secrets are safe, that your pain matters, and that they will never use your vulnerabilities against you. But this apparent empathy is a setup. Once the devaluation phase begins, everything you shared becomes ammunition. Your past rejections are used as proof that you are unlovable. Your family issues become evidence of your dysfunction. Your insecurities become justification for their mistreatment. The covert avoidant knows exactly where to strike to inflict the deepest psychological wounds, because you trusted them with the map to your heart. The most devastating aspect of emotional exploitation is the betrayal of intimacy. The person you believed would protect your heart becomes the one who deliberately attacks it. Over time, you learn that emotional openness is dangerous, that vulnerability leads to exploitation, and that trust equals betrayal. Meanwhile, the covert avoidant remains emotionally detached, using your reactions as proof of your instability. This trains you to suppress your authentic emotions, while they continue to escalate the abuse with cold precision. No-win scenario. A covert avoidant thrives on creating situations where you can never succeed, no matter what you do. This is the no-win scenario, a psychological trap designed to keep you in a constant state of inadequacy. Every choice you make becomes evidence of your failure, every reaction proof of your flaws. If you engage with the covert avoidance drama, you're labeled aggressive. If you withdraw, you're called avoidant. If you try to solve their problems, you're accused of being controlling. If you don't help, you're branded selfish. The rules are rigged so that every path leads to criticism, leaving you feeling powerless and defeated. The covert avoidant uses these scenarios to justify their superiority and maintain control. By ensuring you can never get it right, they prove to themselves that you are inadequate, while reinforcing your dependency on them for guidance and approval. Over time, you begin to doubt your own judgment, second-guess your decisions, and surrender your independence. The most destructive effect of the no-win scenario is how it erodes your confidence. Eventually, you stop trusting yourself altogether and start seeking the covert avoidance approval for every decision. At that point, you are no longer a partner, you are a dependent, trapped in their carefully designed game. Comparison torture chamber. A covert avoidant constantly compares you to others as a way to undermine your self-worth. This weapon, the comparison torture chamber, keeps you trapped in a cycle of inadequacy and competition that you can never win. They might compare your romantic gestures to exaggerated stories they've seen online, your financial contributions to wealthier men, your appearance to people they find more attractive, or your emotional availability to unrealistic fictional standards. The covert avoidant doesn't do this to inspire you to improve, they do it to keep you off balance, insecure and desperate for their validation. Over time, these comparisons start to sink into your subconscious. Instead of evaluating yourself based on your own values and accomplishments, you begin to measure your worth through their critical lens. Even when they're not around, their voice echoes in your mind, reminding you that you're not enough. The damage is profound. Your natural confidence erodes, replaced with chronic insecurity. You start overcompensating, working harder to meet impossible standards, only to be told you still fall short. This ensures the covert avoidant maintains psychological control, while you remain trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and emotional dependency. Performance evaluation system. A covert avoidant transforms love from something unconditional into something you must constantly earn. This weapon, the performance evaluation system, turns every interaction into a test where you are always being graded and judged. Instead of enjoying genuine connection, you find yourself performing for the covert avoidant's approval. They may rate your romantic efforts on arbitrary scales, criticize your choice of gifts, evaluate your conversation skills, or even compare your intimacy to that of others. No matter how hard you try, it's never enough, because the goal isn't to build love, it's to keep you striving while they remain in control. The covert avoidant positions themselves as the judge while exempting themselves from scrutiny. They get to evaluate while you get evaluated. They get to criticize while you're expected to accept the criticism. This creates an imbalance of power that slowly shifts the relationship from partnership to performance. The most destructive impact of this system is psychological conditioning. You begin to internalize their standards, judging your own worth not by who you are but by how satisfied they appear to be. Love becomes labor, connection becomes competition, and your identity becomes trapped in the endless pursuit of their fleeting approval. Boundary violation protocol. Covert avoidant does not respect your boundaries. Instead, they run what can be called the boundary violation protocol, a systematic way of breaking down your limits while fiercely protecting their own. They demand constant access to your time, attention, and emotional energy, but when you need them, they suddenly become unavailable. They expect you to provide detailed explanations of your activities, while keeping their own vague and ambiguous. They create rules for you that they never apply to themselves. In this dynamic, their needs are sacred, while yours are treated as selfish or inconvenient. Each time the covert avoidant successfully overrides your boundaries, they gain more control. Over time, you learn that enforcing your limits leads to guilt, conflict, or punishment, while giving in provides temporary peace. Slowly, you stop setting boundaries altogether, sacrificing your comfort for theirs. The real danger is how this conditioning rewires your mindset. You begin to believe that your needs don't matter, that protecting yourself is selfish, and that keeping them happy is more important than your own well-being. The covert avoidant uses this imbalance to establish psychological dominance, ensuring that your autonomy is steadily replaced by their control. Identity destruction project. A covert avoidant uses their most devastating weapon in what can be called the identity destruction project. This strategy is designed to slowly erase who you are and replace your identity with a version that exists only to serve them. It begins subtly. The covert avoidant discourages your independent interests, criticizes your values, and questions your goals. They may isolate you from your friends and support systems, making you increasingly dependent on them for validation. What once defined you, your confidence, hobbies, ambitions, becomes minimized or mocked until you start to let them go. Over time, this erosion of self is so gradual you hardly notice it happening. One day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. The strong, independent individual you once were has been replaced by an anxious people-pleaser whose life revolves around managing the covert avoidance emotions. The most destructive effect is the loss of perspective. Without an independent identity to return to, leaving the relationship feels impossible. You forget who you were before, and you can't imagine existing without them. At this stage, the covert avoidant has achieved their ultimate goal: complete psychological dependency and emotional servitude. The 10 hidden weapons of the covert avoidant are not random behaviors or simple flaws. They form a calculated psychological warfare strategy designed to gain control, dismantle your autonomy, and make you dependent. From the very beginning, the vulnerability trap pulls you in with fabricated intimacy. Intermittent reinforcement keeps you hooked with unpredictable doses of affection. The passive aggression factory keeps you confused and defensive. The deflection shield makes you question your own perceptions while they escape accountability. Through emotional exploitation, they turn your deepest wounds into weapons. The no-win scenario ensures you never succeed in their eyes, while the comparison torture chamber keeps you chasing impossible standards. The performance evaluation system transforms love into labor, turning every interaction into a test you can never pass. The boundary violation protocol strips you of your limits, while the identity destruction project gradually erases who you are until you exist only to serve them. Together, these weapons reinforce each other in a relentless cycle. Each one weakens your confidence, erodes your independence, and deepens your dependency. By the time you recognize the pattern, you may already feel trapped, unable to imagine life without them. That is the true power of the covert avoidance arsenal. It convinces you that survival depends on the very person who is destroying you, but awareness is the beginning of freedom. By understanding these hidden weapons, you reclaim the ability to see through manipulation. You recognize that love should not be conditional, confusing, or destructive. True intimacy builds you up. It does not tear you down. Breaking free requires courage, boundaries, and the decision to value your own emotional sovereignty above their control. The covert avoidance power ends where your awareness begins. Choose clarity, choose boundaries, and choose yourself.